The glass shattered like a gunshot. Every conversation died. Every fork froze midair. In the heart of Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, where power brokers whispered deals over $1,000 wine, a single broken glass had just signed someone's death warrant. Aria Bennett stood frozen, shards glittering at her feet like diamonds mixed with blood. Across the room, Dante Virelli, the man who'd built an empire on fear, slowly lowered his napkin. Their eyes met. She should have run, should have begged, should have done anything except what she did next. She rolled her eyes. If you want to see how one clumsy waitress dismantled Chicago's most dangerous man, stick around until the end. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The Riverbend was the kind of restaurant where silence cost more than noise, where the clink of crystal against china carried more weight than shouted threats ever could. Aria had worked there for 3 months, and she still felt like an imposter every time she tied on her black apron. Her hand shook as she balanced the tray. 4 wine glasses, each worth more than her rent. The couple at table 7 had ordered the 2015 Burgundy, the one that came in its own wooden presentation box, the one that required 2 managers to sign off on opening it. "You got this," she whispered to herself, a habit from childhood that her mother had never managed to break her of. Just don't think about it. Don't think about how much her shoe caught on something, maybe a slightly raised floor tile. Maybe her own damn feet betraying her like they'd done her entire life. Maybe the universe's sick sense of humor. The tray tilted. Time did that thing it does in disasters, stretched like taffy, giving her just enough seconds to watch her entire paycheck obliterate itself in slow motion. The glasses tumbled, crystal catching the chandelier light, spinning like falling stars. One shattered against the marble floor. The sound punched through the restaurant's careful quiet like a sledgehammer through silk. Every head turned, and Aria, kneeling in a spreading pool of wine that looked disturbingly like blood, looked up to find herself staring directly at Dante Virelli's table. She knew who he was. Everyone in Chicago knew who he was, even if the newspapers played cute and called him a prominent businessman with alleged ties to organized crime. Alleged. Right. Like gravity was alleged to pull things down. He sat in the corner booth, the one that was never listed in the reservation system, the one that required the manager to personally escort guests to, the one that offered a perfect view of both entrances and had no windows at anyone's back. 3 men flanked him. They looked like what you'd get if you ordered hired muscle from a catalog. Expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the shoulder holsters. Dead eyes that tracked movement like security cameras. But Dante himself, he didn't look like a monster. That was the worst part. Mid-30s, dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on a Roman coin. Strong jaw, straight nose, lips that probably smiled once upon a time before whatever happened to turn them into that flat, unreadable line. He wore his suit like a second skin, charcoal gray, probably Italian, definitely custom, and he was looking right at her. The restaurant held its breath. Somewhere in the kitchen, a timer went off. No one moved to silence it. Aria's training kicked in, the useless, ridiculous training about maintaining composure and professional grace in all situations. She grabbed a napkin from a nearby table and started dabbing at the wine. "I am so sorry," she said, to the floor, to the universe, to whoever might be listening. "I'll clean this up immediately." Miss Bennett, her manager's voice came from somewhere above her, tight with the kind of panic that came from watching your career implode in real time. Robert Sterling had managed the Riverbend for 15 years. He did not tolerate mistakes. He especially did not tolerate mistakes in front of Dante Virelli. "Mr. Sterling, Stand up." She stood, wine-soaked napkin clutched in her hand like a white flag. Her polyester blend slacks were ruined. Her white shirt had a splash of red across the stomach that looked like a stab wound. Her face burned hot enough to light cigarettes. Robert's expression could have curdled milk. "Go to my office. We'll discuss this after service." Discuss. Right. That was restaurant manager speak for collect your final paycheck. Aria opened her mouth to respond, but a voice cut through the tension, smooth, low, with an edge like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Actually, I'd like to speak with her first." Dante Virelli stood from his booth with the fluid grace of a predator rising from rest. He moved toward them, and Arya watched Robert's face cycle through surprise, confusion, and landing solidly on fear. "Mr. Varelli, that won't be necessary," Robert said quickly. "I assure you, this employee will be thoroughly—" "I'm not asking." 3 words. That's all it took. Robert's mouth snapped shut like someone had cut his strings. Dante stopped about 3 feet away from Arya. Up close, she could see details she'd missed from across the room. The thin scar through his left eyebrow, the way his dark eyes held absolutely nothing, the slight tension in his jaw that suggested he was holding something back. She should have been terrified. Every survival instinct in her body screamed that she should have been on her knees, apologizing, begging. Instead, exhaustion and frustration and 3 months of dealing with entitled rich people who treated her like furniture bubbled up and burst out in the worst possible moment. "If you're going to threaten me, can you do it quickly? I've got 6 other tables, and table 12 is going to need their entrees in about 4 minutes. The silence that followed could have stopped hearts. One of Dante's men moved forward, a wall of muscle with a face like a clenched fist. Dante raised one hand, barely a movement, and the man froze. "What's your name?" Dante asked. "You already know it. You heard my manager." "I want to hear you say it." She met his eyes. Big mistake. They were dark brown, almost black, and completely empty. Looking into them felt like staring into the barrel of a gun. "Arya Bennett." "Arya." He said it slowly, like he was tasting the syllables. "How long have you worked here?" 3 months. "You like it?" "Does anyone actually like waiting tables?" Someone behind her made a small, strangled sound, probably Robert having a coronary. But something flickered across Dante's face. If she didn't know better, she'd have called it amusement. "Most people are more careful around me," he said. "Most people probably have better things to lose." It came out before she could stop it. The truth usually did. Her mother always said her mouth would get her killed one day. Looked like today might be that day. Dante tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "You're not afraid." "I'm terrified," she corrected. "I'm just also really tired, behind on rent, and apparently unemployed as of about 90 seconds ago. So forgive me if I don't have the energy to grovel properly." "Miss Bennett!" Robert's voice cracked on her name. But Dante raised his hand again, that same minimal gesture that somehow commanded absolute obedience. "How much is the wine?" "The wine I just destroyed?" Arya looked at the spreading puddle. "Probably more than I make in 3 months." $4,000, Robert supplied quietly. "Per bottle." She was carrying 2. Arya felt her stomach drop through the floor. $8,000. She might as well have set $8,000 on fire. She might as well have— "Put it on my bill," Dante said. The restaurant seemed to exhale. "Mr. Varelli, that's incredibly generous, but—" Robert started. "And give her table 12. I'll take my meal in the private dining room. Have her bring it up." "Sir, I don't think—" Dante's gaze cut to Robert. No words necessary. Robert swallowed whatever objection he'd been forming. "Of course, Mr. Varelli. Right away." Then Dante looked back at Arya. "You have 4 minutes. Don't keep me waiting." He walked away, his men falling into formation around him like satellites orbiting a black hole. They disappeared through a door marked private that Arya had never seen opened in 3 months of working there. She stood in the wreckage of her mistake, wine soaking into her shoes, her career hanging by a thread, trying to process what had just happened. Robert grabbed her elbow hard enough to bruise. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know." "You don't know? You just spoke to Dante Varelli like he was some random customer complaining about his steak." I panicked. "You—" Robert made a visible effort to control himself. "Get cleaned up. Put on a fresh shirt from the supply closet. And when you take his meal up, you smile, you're polite, you say as little as humanly possible, and you get out. Do you understand?" "What does he want?" "I don't know, and I don't want to know." Robert's face had gone pale. "But whatever it is, you do it. Because if you upset him, I can't protect you. No one can." The private dining room was on the 3rd floor, a space Arya had heard about but never seen. The restaurant used it for special events, high-profile meetings, the kind of gatherings where NDAs were signed before appetizers arrived. She carried the tray up the back stairs, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd changed into a fresh shirt, pulled her dark hair back into a neater ponytail, tried to make herself look like someone who hadn't just committed professional suicide. The door was already open. She could see into the room, hardwood floors, exposed brick walls, a single table set for one. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago River, city lights reflecting off the water like scattered jewels. Dante sat facing the door, waiting. His men were nowhere to be seen. Arya hesitated in the doorway. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but Robert's words echoed in her head. Whatever he wants, you do it. She stepped inside. Close the door. She did. The click of the latch sounded final. Bring the food here. She crossed to the table on legs that felt like they might give out. She set down the plates with hands that only shook a little. Grilled sea bass, roasted vegetables, some kind of reduction that probably had a French name she couldn't pronounce. Sit down. Arya froze. I'm sorry? Sit. He gestured to the chair across from him. We're going to have dinner. I'm working. I have other tables. Robert will handle them. Mr. Varelli, I really should… Dante. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. Call me Dante. And sit down, Arya. I'm not going to ask again. She sat. Because what else could she do? He didn't touch his food, just watched her with those empty eyes, like he was trying to see through her skin to whatever lay underneath. You're different, he said finally. Different how? Everyone in this city knows who I am, what I do. When I walk into a room, people either try to use me or they try to avoid me. But you… He paused. You looked at me like I was just another customer who might stiff you on the tip. I didn't know you were going to be there. I was just trying not to drop… She stopped. I dropped it anyway. Yes, you did. You paid for it. Why? Because I wanted to see what you'd do. Arya frowned. That's insane. Probably. He picked up his wine glass, red, expensive, probably worth more than her car. Tell me about yourself. Why? Because I'm asking. That's not a reason. His lips twitched, almost a smile. You're very blunt. I'm very tired, she corrected, and confused, and I still think I might be fired after this, so I guess I don't see the point in pretending to be someone I'm not. Who are you? Nobody special. A waitress who can't walk straight. A dropout who thought she'd make it as an artist and ended up serving overpriced fish to people who don't look at her. But I'm looking at you. Yeah. She met his eyes. That's the part that scares me. Silence settled over the table. Outside, a boat passed on the river, its horn echoing through the night. I haven't felt anything real in 12 years, Dante said quietly. His voice had changed, lost that edge of command, became something raw. I've built an empire. I control half this city. I have money, power, respect, fear. Everything I touch turns to profit. Everyone I meet wants something from me. He set down his glass. And then you dropped a glass, looked at me like I was just some annoying inconvenience in your day, and something in my chest moved for the first time since I don't remember when. Arya's breath caught. She should have said something, should have known what to say, but she just sat there watching this dangerous man crack open like ice over a thawing lake. I don't know what you want me to say, she whispered. I don't either. He stood abruptly, walked to the window. His reflection overlaid the city lights, turning him into a ghost. Tell me something true. What? Everyone lies to me. Even when they're telling the truth, they're calculating how to use it. So tell me something true. Something you've never told anyone else. She should have refused. Should have excused herself, walked out, gotten as far from this man as possible. Instead, she heard herself say, I'm afraid I'll die invisible, that I'll spend my whole life serving food to people who don't see me, and I'll just disappear. Like I was never here at all. He turned from the window. I see you. I know. Her voice cracked. That's what scares me. The moment stretched between them, fragile, dangerous, impossible to name. Then Dante's phone rang. He answered it without looking away from her. What? A pause. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, shoulders squaring, jaw tightening. The vulnerable man from 30 seconds ago vanished, replaced by the crime boss who ruled Chicago with an iron fist. Handle it, he said, and hung up. He looked at Arya. I have to go. There's a situation that requires my attention. She stood. Of course. This isn't over. What isn't over? This. Us. This conversation. He moved toward the door, then stopped. I'm going to see you again. Mr. Varelli? Dante. Dante. His name felt strange on her tongue. I don't think that's a good idea. Probably not. He smiled then, a real smile, brief as lightning. It transformed his face, made him look almost human. But I stopped making good decisions a long time ago. He left. Arya stood alone in the private dining room, her heart racing, her hands shaking, the city spread out before her like a promise or a threat. She had no idea that her life had just irrevocably changed, that the glass she'd dropped had shattered more than crystal. It had cracked open a door to a world she didn't understand, a world of power and violence and dangerous men who felt nothing until they felt everything. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Robert kept shooting her nervous glances but didn't ask questions. Her coworkers whispered in corners. Table 12 left her a $500 tip on a $200 meal. She took the train home at midnight, exhausted and confused and unable to stop replaying the conversation in her head. I haven't felt anything real in 12 years. What did that even mean? Her apartment was in Logan Square, a tiny studio with windows that didn't quite close and a radiator that clanked like it was trying to communicate in Morse code. But it was hers. The walls were covered in her paintings, abstract explosions of color that she created at 2 a.m. when she couldn't sleep, when the world felt too big and too small at the same time. She made instant ramen because that's what was in the cabinet. She ate it sitting on her bed, staring at her phone, wondering if she'd imagined the whole thing. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. I meant what I said. This isn't over. D. She should have blocked the number, should have pretended she never got the message, should have protected herself from whatever was coming. Instead, she typed, How did you get my number? The response came immediately. I know everything about you, Arya Bennett, born in Indianapolis. Moved to Chicago at 19 to attend the School of the Art Institute. Dropped out after 1 year when your mother got sick. Worked 6 different jobs in the last 4 years. You paint in the middle of the night. You take your coffee black because you can't afford cream. You're 3 months behind on rent. Her hands went cold. She typed, That's terrifying. I know. I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. Not good at what? A long pause. Then, being human. She stared at those 2 words for a full minute. Being human. Like it was something he'd forgotten how to do. Like it was a skill he'd lost. Against every bit of common sense she possessed, she typed, Nobody's good at it. We're all just pretending. Are you pretending right now? No. Are you? No. Another pause. Then, Can I see you tomorrow? Every alarm in her head went off. This was Dante Varelli, a man who built empires on violence, a man who made people disappear, a man who lived in a world where mercy was weakness and trust was fatal. But she remembered the way he'd looked at her in the private dining room, the crack in his armor, the desperate hunger in his voice when he said, I haven't felt anything real. She understood that. The desperation, the hunger, the terrible fear of being invisible. Where? She typed. Millennium Park. The Bean. 2 p.m. I work at 5. I'll make sure you're not late. She should have said no. Should have ended it right there. Should have protected herself from the inevitable disaster waiting at the end of this road. Instead, she typed, Okay. Then she set down her phone, climbed into bed, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Busted. Millennium Park at 2 p.m. on a Thursday was chaos. Tourists taking selfies with Cloudgate, children running through the fountains despite the cool October air, street performers competing for attention and dollars. Arya stood in front of the Bean, watching her distorted reflection in the polished steel. She'd changed outfits 3 times before leaving her apartment, finally settling on jeans and a leather jacket that had seen better days. She felt ridiculous. This wasn't a date. This was... She didn't know what this was. You came. She spun around. Dante stood 5 feet away, hands in the pockets of a black coat that probably cost more than everything she owned. He wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky. No visible bodyguards, but she'd bet anything they were nearby. I said I would. People say a lot of things. They don't always mean them. I meant it. He took off his sunglasses. His eyes found hers, and she saw something in them she hadn't expected. Nervousness. Dante Varelli, the man who made Chicago's power players sweat, looked nervous. "Walk with me?" he asked. They walked, past the fountains, through the garden, down paths that wound through carefully manicured green spaces. He didn't touch her, didn't stand too close, kept a respectful distance like he was afraid she might bolt. "Tell me about your art," he said. "Why?" "Because I want to know." "It's not good." "I didn't ask if it was good. I asked you to tell me about it." She thought about lying, making it sound more impressive than it was. But he'd asked for truth, and something about him made her want to give it. "I paint when I can't sleep, when the world feels too loud or too quiet. I don't plan them. I just throw color at canvas until something emerges. Sometimes it's beautiful. Usually it's just mess. But you keep doing it." "Yeah." "Why?" "Because it's the only thing I do that feels like me. Everything else is just survival. But when I'm painting, I'm not invisible." He stopped walking. They'd reached a quieter part of the park, away from the crowds. "Show me." "Show you what?" "Your paintings. I want to see them." "They're in my apartment." "Then take me there." Arya laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You want to come to my apartment? That's insane." "Probably. You're a crime boss. I'm a waitress. This doesn't make sense." "I know." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "But I haven't felt this alive in 12 years, and I'm not ready to let it go yet. This is crazy." "Yes." "You're dangerous." "Extremely. I should run." "You should." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her cheek. His hand was warm. His touch was gentle. "But you won't." He was right. She wouldn't. "One condition," she said. "You tell me something true. Something you've never told anyone." His hand dropped. For a moment she thought he'd refuse, thought he'd walk away and she'd never see him again. Then he said, "I'm tired of being a monster. I've been one for so long I forgot what else I could be. And when you looked at me last night like I was just another person, for 30 seconds, I wasn't. I was just a man. And I want to feel that again." The confession hung in the air between them, raw, desperate, dangerous. "Okay," Arya whispered. "Come on." Her apartment looked even smaller with Dante in it. He filled the space, not with size but with presence. Like gravity had shifted and everything in the room oriented itself around him. He stood in the center, turning slowly, taking in the paintings that covered every wall. Explosions of crimson and gold, dark blues bleeding into violent purples. Abstract shapes that might have been faces or might have been screams. "These are incredible," he said quietly. "They're angry." "Yes." He moved closer to one, a canvas dominated by black with streaks of white cutting through like lightning. "But they're honest. There's no pretense here. No trying to be something they're not." He turned to face her. "Like you." "You don't know me." "I want to." "Why?" "Because everyone I know is wearing a mask, playing a part, calculating angles. But you," he gestured at the paintings, "you put your truth on canvas and hang it on walls. You say exactly what you mean. You don't soften it or hide it or weaponize it. You're just real." Arya felt something crack in her chest. "I'm not special." "You're wrong." He crossed to her in 3 steps, stood close enough that she could feel heat radiating from his body. "You're the first real thing I've encountered in over a decade." "Dante, I know this is insane. I know I'm dangerous. I know you should tell me to leave and never contact you again." His hand found her face again, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "But I'm asking you to give me a chance to be something other than what I am, just for a little while." She should have said no, should have protected herself, should have chosen safety over this terrifying, intoxicating thing building between them. Instead, she rose on her toes and kissed him. It was gentle at first, questioning, tentative. Then his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her against him, and the kiss deepened into something hungry and desperate and absolutely inevitable. When they broke apart, Both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. "This is going to complicate everything," he murmured. "I know. I can't promise you safety. I'm not asking for it. My world. It's dark, Arya. Violent, unforgiving. Then show me the light." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "You said you wanted to be something other than a monster. So be. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm asking you to let me see you. Really see you." Something shifted in his expression, like a door opening in a room that had been locked for years. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." They spent the afternoon in her tiny apartment, talking. He told her about growing up in Chicago, about his father's expectations, about the moment he realized he had a talent for reading people, for understanding power, for taking it and keeping it. She told him about her mother's illness, about dropping out of art school, about the crushing weight of feeling like she'd failed before her life had really started. He didn't sugarcoat his world, told her about the deals, the violence, the people who disappeared when they became inconvenient. Told her about learning to turn off his emotions because they were liabilities. Told her about becoming so good at being untouchable that he forgot how to be touched. And she listened without judgment, without fear, with only an openness that made him feel like he was bleeding out and being healed at the same time. When his phone rang at 4:30, he ignored it. It rang again and again. "You need to answer that," Arya said. "I don't want to." "Dante." He sighed and answered. "What?" She watched his face harden as he listened, watched the vulnerable man disappear and the crime boss return. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said, and hung up. He looked at her, and she could see the struggle on his face, the part that wanted to stay warring with the part that knew he had to go. "I have to handle something. I know." "I don't want to leave." "I know that too." He kissed her again, slower this time, like he was trying to memorize the feeling. "I'll call you." "Promise?" "I promise." He left. The apartment felt enormous and empty without him. Arya sat on her bed, touching her lips, trying to process what had just happened. She'd kissed Dante Varelli. She'd invited him into her home, into her life, into the spaces she kept private. And the terrifying part was that she wanted to do it again. Her phone buzzed. A text from Robert. "We need to talk. Come in early tomorrow." Her stomach sank. Whatever was coming, it wasn't good. But for now, for this moment, she let herself remember the way Dante had looked at her paintings, the way he'd held her like she might break, the way he'd trusted her with pieces of himself he'd kept hidden for years. She didn't know what came next, didn't know if this fragile, impossible thing between them could survive in his world of violence and power. But she knew she was going to try. Outside her window, Chicago glittered in the gathering dusk, beautiful and dangerous and full of possibilities, just like the man who'd walked into her life with a shattered glass and walked out with a piece of her heart. The Riverbend's back office smelled like old coffee and Robert's anxiety. Arya sat in the uncomfortable chair across from his desk, watching her manager pace like a caged animal. He'd been doing that for 5 minutes, and she was getting dizzy. "Are you going to fire me or just wear a hole in the carpet?" she asked. Robert stopped, looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "Fire you? Arya, do you have any idea what's happened? I dropped some wine. Dante paid for it. I thought we were past this." "Past this?" He laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. 3 different members of the Chicago Restaurant Association called me yesterday. Do you know what they wanted? To know how I got Dante Varelli to become a regular customer. Arya blinked. "What?" "He made a reservation for tonight, private dining room, table for 2. Robert leaned against his desk. "He specifically requested you as his server." Her stomach did something complicated. "Oh. Oh? That's all you have to say?" Robert ran his hand through his thinning hair. "Arya, I don't know what happened up there on Tuesday night, and honestly, I don't want to know. But whatever it was, you've apparently made an impression on the most dangerous man in Chicago." "I didn't mean to." "Well, you did, and now I have a choice. Let you serve him and hope this doesn't blow up in all our faces, or refuse his request and potentially insult a man who could make this restaurant disappear with a phone call." "So I'm serving him." "You're serving him," Robert pointed at her. "But Arya, listen to me carefully. This isn't a game. Dante Varelli isn't some charming bad boy from a romance novel. He's killed people. Plural. With his own hands. The rumors about what he does to people who cross him, He shook his head. Just be careful. Please. She wanted to tell him that Dante wasn't like that. Wanted to defend the man who'd stood in her apartment yesterday, looking at her paintings like they were holy texts. The man who'd kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. But Robert was right. She'd seen only a sliver of Dante. The part he'd chosen to show her. The soft underbelly he'd exposed for 30 seconds before reality came crashing back. I'll be careful, she said. Good. Now go home. Get some rest. Your shift starts at 5. Don't be late. She left the restaurant and pulled out her phone. No messages from Dante. She typed, "Heard you made a reservation." The response came within seconds. Couldn't stay away. Is that okay? It's crazy. That's not an answer. She stood on the sidewalk watching taxis crawl through afternoon traffic and realized she was smiling. It's okay. Good. I want to see you before service. Can you come early? 4 p.m.? Why? Because I missed you, and I'm not used to missing people. It's uncomfortable. That made her laugh out loud. A passing businessman gave her a strange look. She didn't care. You're impossible. I know. 4 p.m.? Fine. But I'm still working tonight. I'm counting on it. She went home, showered, changed into her work clothes. Stood in front of her mirror and tried to recognize the woman staring back. 2 days ago, she'd been invisible. A ghost in polyester, serving food to people who never looked twice. Now Dante Varelli was making reservations just to see her. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Aria Bennett? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. Yes? My name is Victoria Cross. I'm a reporter with the Chicago Tribune. I wanted to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Dante Varelli. Aria's blood went cold. I don't have a relationship with anyone. Really? Because my sources tell me he spent Wednesday afternoon at your apartment in Logan Square. That's quite unusual for a man who doesn't typically make house calls. I don't know what you're talking about. Miss Bennett, I'm trying to help you. Dante Varelli is dangerous. Whatever he's told you, whatever promises he's made, Aria hung up. Her hands were shaking. How did they already know? How did anyone know? Her phone buzzed again. Different number. She ignored it. Another call. Another. Then a text from Dante. Don't answer any calls from numbers you don't recognize. I'm handling it. How did you know? Because I know how this works. Someone saw us. Someone always sees. I'm sorry. What do I do? Nothing. Say nothing. I'll take care of it. She wanted to feel reassured. Instead, she felt the first cold finger of reality pressing against her chest. This was Dante's world, a world where privacy didn't exist, where being seen with him turned her into a target. Her phone rang again. This time, she recognized the number. Her mother. Mom? Aria Marie Bennett, what in the name of all that's holy is going on? Her mother's voice carried that special blend of worry and fury that only mothers could achieve. I just got a call from some reporter asking about you and a gangster. Mom, it's complicated. Complicated? Baby, I raised you better than this. Do you know who Dante Varelli is? Yes. And you're seeing him anyway? We're not. Aria pressed her palm against her forehead. I served him at the restaurant. That's all. That's not what the reporter said? The reporter is fishing. There's nothing to tell. Silence on the line, then her mother's voice softer. Aria, honey, I know you're lonely. I know Chicago's been hard, but please, please be careful. Men like that, they don't love, they consume, and when they're done, there's nothing left. I know, Mom. Do you? Because you sound like you're trying to convince yourself. Aria closed her eyes. I have to go to work. Call me tomorrow. Promise me. I promise. She hung up and sat on her bed, staring at her paintings. They looked different now, less like expressions of isolation and more like warnings. At 3:45, she left for the restaurant. She took the train, hyper-aware of everyone around her. Was that man reading the paper watching her? Was that woman on her phone taking pictures? Paranoia tasted like metal on her tongue. The Riverbend was quiet when she arrived. Pre-dinner lull. Robert was in the kitchen arguing with the head chef about something. The other servers weren't in yet. The private dining room door was open. She climbed the stairs, her heart hammering. Dante stood at the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the river. He'd ditched the suit jacket. White dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. She could see a tattoo on his left forearm, Latin words she couldn't read from this distance. "You came early," he said without turning around. "You asked me to." "I wasn't sure you would." After the reporters started calling. "How did they find out?" "Someone at the park recognized me, took photos, sold them." He turned to face her. "I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. Can you make it stop?" "The story?" "No. I can kill it in most places, but not everywhere. The Tribune won't touch it. I have arrangements with their editor, but smaller outlets, blogs, social media." He shook his head. "That's harder to control. So everyone's going to know. Everyone who pays attention, yes." Arya felt something squeeze in her chest. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe. He crossed to her in 3 strides, cupped her face in his hands. "But I don't care." "Dante, I spent 12 years being untouchable. Perfect control, perfect isolation. And I was dying inside, Arya. Slowly. So slowly I didn't even notice until you dropped that glass and looked at me like I was human." His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. "So, yes, this is dangerous. Yes, it's going to complicate your life, but I'm asking you, begging you, don't walk away yet. Give me a chance to prove this is worth it." "Worth what? Being followed? Being hounded by reporters? Having my mother call me in a panic?" "Worth feeling alive." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Worth being seen, really seen, the way you said you were afraid you'd never be." Damn him. Damn him for listening, for remembering, for using her own words as a weapon. "This is insane," she said. "I know. I should run. Probably. But I won't. I know that too." He kissed her, slow and deep and desperate. When he pulled back, his eyes were darker than she'd ever seen them. "Have dinner with me tonight. Not as your customer, as whatever this is. I have to work. Robert's already approved it. You're officially off the clock at 6. My reservation is at 7. You plan this." "I plan everything." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed him. "Except you. You were completely unplanned." Against her better judgment, she smiled back. "Fine. Dinner. But you're telling me the truth about your world. No sanitizing it. No protecting me from reality. Deal." At 5 p.m., the restaurant started filling up. Arya worked her section on autopilot, her mind already upstairs in the private dining room. She screwed up 2 orders, spilled water on a businessman's lap, nearly dropped another tray. Robert pulled her aside at 6:15. "Go, before you hurt someone." "I'm fine. You're a disaster. Go upstairs. I'll handle your tables." She went. Dante had changed, still all black but somehow more relaxed. The table was set with candles, white linens, wine that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Sit," he said. She sat. He poured wine for both of them, then settled into the chair across from her. "You wanted truth. Ask me anything." "How many people have you killed?" He didn't flinch. "Personally? 4. People I've ordered killed?" I stopped counting at 30. The number hit her like a fist. "Why?" "Because they were threats. Because they broke agreements. Because in my world, mercy is weakness, and weakness gets you killed." "Do you regret it?" "Some of them. Most of them, no." He took a sip of wine. "Does that make me a monster?" "I don't know," she said, honestly. "Maybe. But you're also the man who stood in my apartment looking at my paintings like they mattered. Who kissed me like I was precious? Who asked me to see you as human?" She met his eyes. "People aren't one thing, Dante. We're all monsters and saints depending on the moment. You're not a monster. You don't know that. You don't know what I'm capable of when I'm desperate. Tell me." She thought about lying, making herself sound better than she was. But he'd given her truth. She owed him the same. "When my mom got sick, I stole from the art supply store where I worked. Paint, brushes, canvas, hundreds of dollars worth. Because I needed to create something beautiful while she was dying, and I couldn't afford both supplies and her medication." She stared at her wine glass. "They never caught me. I never told anyone. I just took what I needed and justified it because I was in pain. That's not being a monster. That's being human. You killed people. I stole art supplies. These things aren't equivalent. No, he agreed. But the impulse is the same: survival, desperation, the need to hold on to something when everything else is falling apart. Dinner arrived, brought by a server Arya didn't recognize, probably someone Robert had called in special. They ate in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable quiet that shouldn't have existed between a waitress and a crime boss, but somehow did. "Tell me about your first kill," Arya said. Dante set down his fork. "You really want to know?" "Yes." "I was 19. My father's right-hand man betrayed him, sold information to a rival. My father asked me to handle it." He looked out the window. "I shot him in the head in an abandoned warehouse on the south side. He begged, cried, said he had kids. I pulled the trigger anyway." "Did you feel anything?" "I vomited afterward, couldn't sleep for 3 days. Saw his face every time I closed my eyes." "And now?" "Now I've learned to compartmentalize, to separate the man from the monster, to do what needs to be done and lock the guilt in a box I never open." "Except you're opening it now." "Yes." He looked at her. "Because you asked me to be human, and humans feel guilt." Arya reached across the table, took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm, solid, real. "I don't know if I can love a killer," she said quietly. "I know. But I want to try. Is that insane?" "Completely. Tell me I'm not making a terrible mistake." "I can't." His grip tightened. "Because I don't know. Maybe you are. Maybe I'm going to destroy you. Maybe this whole thing crashes and burns and you end up hating me. Then why are we doing this? Because for the first time in 12 years, I feel something other than nothing. And I'm selfish enough to hold on to that, even if it hurts you." She should have been scared, should have pulled her hand away and run. Instead, she stood, walked around the table, and kissed him. This time, it wasn't gentle. It was hungry, desperate, edged with the knowledge that this couldn't last, that the world outside would crush them eventually. But for now, for this moment, they had each other. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered. "Where?" "My place. My real place. Not the penthouse everyone knows about, the one where I actually live. Dante, I want to wake up next to you. Just once. I want to know what that feels like." Every rational part of her brain screamed no. This was too fast, too intense, too dangerous. But the part that had been invisible for so long, the part that craved being seen, whispered yes. "Okay," she said. "Okay." They left through the back entrance. A black car waited, expensive, tinted windows, driver in a suit. Dante's hand stayed on the small of her back as they got in. The car drove north, out of the downtown core, into neighborhoods Arya barely recognized. They stopped in front of a brownstone in Lincoln Park, elegant but understated, the kind of building that whispered old money rather than shouting it. Inside, the apartment was surprisingly normal. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, modern furniture that looked comfortable rather than expensive. Books on shelves, a kitchen that showed signs of actual use, windows overlooking a small garden. "This is your place?" Arya asked. "The penthouse is for show, for meetings and appearances and maintaining the image." He shrugged out of his jacket. "This is home. It's beautiful. It's empty." He turned to her. "I haven't brought anyone here in 5 years. The only people who know about it are my closest associates." "Why me?" "Because you're real. And I'm tired of performing." She walked through the space, taking it in. Stopped in front of a painting on the wall, abstract, violent slashes of red and black. "This is a Rothko." "You know Rothko?" "I studied art, remember? Before I dropped out." She leaned closer. "This is worth millions. It speaks to me." "Why?" "Because it's chaotic, angry. But there's structure underneath, control within the violence." He came up behind her, not touching but close enough to feel. "Like me." She turned to face him. "Show me who you are when you're not performing." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he took her hand and led her to the bedroom. What happened next was slow, tender. Nothing like the desperate kisses they'd shared before. He undressed her carefully, reverently, like she might shatter. She did the same for him, her fingers tracing scars she'd never noticed. A knife wound on his ribs, a bullet graze on his shoulder, smaller marks that told stories of violence survived. "You've been hurt," she whispered. "Many times. Does it still hurt?" "Not when you touch it." They made love like people who knew this might be their only chance, like every moment had to be memorized, cataloged, saved for whatever came after. And when it was over, when they lay tangled in sheets that smelled like expensive detergent and him, Dante pulled her close and breathed against her hair. "I think I'm falling in love with you," he said. "And I don't know how to do that without destroying you." Arya's chest tightened. "Then don't destroy me. I'll try, but I don't know if I know how to do anything else." She turned in his arms to face him. "Then we'll learn together." He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. "Stay." "I'm here." "No, stay. In this, in my life. Even when it gets hard. Even when my world tries to eat you alive. Stay." It was a terrible idea, the worst idea. But she heard herself say, "I'll stay." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, two broken people trying to make something whole. Arya woke at 3 a.m. to find Dante gone. She sat up, heart racing, and found him standing at the window in his boxers, staring out at the city. "Dante?" He didn't turn. "I have enemies, Arya. People who would use you to get to me. People who would hurt you just to watch me suffer." "I know." "No, you don't." He turned and his face was hard. "There's a man named Viktor Kozlov, Russian. He's been trying to move into my territory for 2 years. He's ruthless, creative, and if he finds out about you, he'll take you. He'll hurt you in ways I can't even describe. And then he'll send me pieces of you until I give him what he wants." The image made her stomach churn. "Then we'll be careful." "Careful isn't enough. The moment you became visible to me, you became visible to everyone. So what are you saying? That this is over?" "I'm saying you need to understand the stakes. This isn't a romance novel. There's no guaranteed happy ending. There's just survival and hope, and the very real possibility that I'll get you killed." Arya got out of bed, walked to him. "Look at me." He did. "I've been invisible my entire life. I've served food to people who never looked at me. I've painted in the middle of the night and wondered if anyone would ever see my work. I've been so lonely, I forgot what it felt like to be touched." She took his hand. "And then you saw me. Really saw me. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I existed." "Arya, so yes, it's dangerous. Yes, I might get hurt. But I'd rather live dangerously and feel alive than be safe and invisible. You might die." "Everyone dies, Dante. At least this way I'll die having been seen." He pulled her against him, buried his face in her hair. She felt his chest shake, with laughter or tears, she couldn't tell. "You're insane," he murmured. "I learned from the best." They went back to bed. This time, when they made love, it was different, tinged with desperation, with the knowledge that every moment was borrowed time. Afterward, as dawn started painting the sky pink, Dante said, "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "Victor knows about you." Arya's blood went cold. "What?" "One of my men informed me tonight. Victor's been having me followed. He has photos. He knows where you work, where you live. He's going to make a move." "When?" "Soon. Maybe days, maybe hours." "So what do we do?" "I've already moved your mother to a secure location. She's safe. I have people watching your apartment, the restaurant, every route you take." He cupped her face. "But Arya, you need to be ready. This is going to get ugly." "I'm not leaving you." "I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to trust me. To do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you, without question. Dante, promise me." She looked into his eyes and saw fear. Real, raw fear. Not for himself, for her. "I promise." "Good." He kissed her gently. "Because I'm not losing you. Whatever it takes, I'm keeping you safe." But even as he said it, Arya could hear the doubt in his voice, could feel the weight of his world pressing down on both of them. She'd chosen this. Chosen him. Chosen visibility over safety. Now she just had to survive the consequences. The next 3 days passed in a strange blur of normalcy and paranoia. Arya went to work like always, smiled at customers like always, pretended her life hadn't become a ticking time bomb. But she felt them now. Dante's men, shadows in expensive suits who sat at corner tables nursing coffee for hours, who walked past the restaurant at precise intervals, who followed her train home at a careful distance. Protection, Dante called it. A cage, it felt like. She saw him every night. He'd pick her up after her shift, take her back to the brownstone, and they'd pretend they were normal people living normal lives. They cooked dinner together, or rather, she cooked while he watched, fascinated by the mundane ritual of chopping vegetables and stirring pots. They watched old movies. They talked about everything except the danger circling closer, and they made love like people running out of time. On the fourth day, everything changed. Arya was in the middle of her shift, delivering appetizers to table 9, when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. She excused herself to the bathroom, pulled out her phone. 7 missed calls from Dante. 3 text messages, each more urgent than the last. Call me now. Arya, please. It's happening. Her hand shook as she dialed. He answered before the first ring finished. Where are you? His voice was tight, controlled, but she could hear the fear underneath. Work. What's wrong? Victor just hit one of my warehouses on the south side, killed 3 of my men, left a message. What message? A photograph. Of you, with a time and place written on the back. The bathroom suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. What time? What place? Midnight, Navy Pier. He paused. He wants to meet. Says if I don't come alone, he starts sending pieces of you to every newspaper in Chicago. But I'm here. I'm safe. He doesn't have me. Not yet. But Arya, he's making his move. This is it. She heard voices in the background, orders being given in sharp tones. I need you to leave work right now. Marco's outside. He's going to take you to a safe house. A safe house? An apartment in Evanston, secure, off the grid. You'll stay there until this is over. How long? I don't know, days, maybe weeks. Arya's chest tightened. And what are you going to do? Silence. Too long. Dante, what are you going to do? What I have to. Don't go to Navy Pier, it's a trap. Of course it's a trap. But if I don't go, he escalates, and people I care about get hurt. People like me. Especially you. She pressed her forehead against the cool bathroom tile. There has to be another way. There isn't. Victor's been planning this for months. He's thought through every angle, every contingency. The only way to end this is to end him. So end him somewhere else. Somewhere you have the advantage. I tried that. He's too smart. He stays in protected territory, surrounded by his own men. Navy Pier is neutral ground, public. It's the only place he'll meet. Then take your whole army, surround the place. He'll see that coming. And then he disappears and we're back to square one. Except now he knows I won't play by his rules. Dante's voice softened. Baby, I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But I've been doing this for 15 years. I know how to handle Victor. By walking into a trap alone? By making him think he's won and then taking everything from him. Arya closed her eyes. You're going to get yourself killed. Probably not. I'm very good at not dying. That's not funny. I know. I'm sorry. She heard him take a breath. Marco's waiting. Please go with him. Please let me do this knowing you're safe. And if you don't come back? Then Marco has instructions. Money, documents, everything you need to disappear. Start over somewhere Victor can't reach you. I don't want your money. I want you. I know. But if it comes to that, take it anyway. Live, paint, be visible. Don't let my mistakes make you invisible again. Tears burned her eyes. Dante, I love you, Arya. I know it's too soon. I know it's crazy, but I do. You cracked me open and made me feel human again, and whatever happens tonight, that was worth it. Don't say goodbye. This isn't goodbye. It's not. It's see you soon. His voice roughened. Now go, please. She ended the call and leaned against the sink, trying to breathe. Her reflection stared back, pale, terrified, alive in a way she'd never been before meeting him. She should have listened, should have walked out of the bathroom, found Marco, let him take her to safety. Instead, she made a different choice. She left through the back entrance, dodged Marco, who was waiting out front, and took the train toward Navy Pier. If Dante thought she was going to hide in some safe house while he walked into a death trap, he didn't know her at all. The city blurred past the train windows, lights and shadows, people living normal lives, unaware that in a few hours, someone might die on the pier where they took their children for Ferris wheel rides and cotton candy. Her phone buzzed. Marco. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Dante this time. She turned it off. Navy Pier at 11 p.m. was mostly empty. The tourist shops were closed, the restaurants winding down. Security guards patrolled in pairs, bored and unaware. Arya walked past them like she belonged, like her heart wasn't trying to punch through her ribs. She found a maintenance corridor she'd discovered years ago during an art school field trip. It led to the upper levels, the spaces tourists didn't see. She climbed rusted stairs, pushed through a door marked authorized personnel only, and emerged onto a catwalk overlooking the main concourse. From here, she could see everything. The Ferris wheel, dark and still. The entrance to the pier. The spaces between buildings where shadows gathered. And she waited. Midnight came with fog rolling in off the lake, turning the pier into something from a ghost story. Arya's fingers were numb from cold, her legs cramping from crouching on the catwalk, but she didn't move. Then she saw him. Dante walked alone down the center of the pier, hands in his coat pockets, moving with that predator grace she'd come to recognize. No visible weapons, no backup, just a man walking into the dark like it couldn't touch him. Figures emerged from the shadows. 6 of them, all armed, all positioned to cut off escape routes. And in the center, a man who had to be Viktor Kozlov. He was older than she'd expected, mid-50s, with silver hair and a face that looked carved from ice. He wore an expensive overcoat and held himself like royalty inspecting peasants. Their voices drifted up to her hiding spot, faint but audible in the fog-muffled quiet. Dante Varelli. So predictable. Victor's accent was thick, Russian vowels turning each word into a threat. I say jump. You say how high. You wanted to meet. I'm here. Say what you came to say. So eager. Where's the girl? Safe. Somewhere you'll never find her. Victor laughed, a cold, empty sound. You think I want her? She's nothing. A tool. A way to make you hurt. Then you wasted your time. I don't hurt. No? Victor pulled something from his pocket. Even from this distance, Arya recognized it. One of her paintings. The small one she'd done of the Chicago skyline. The one that had been hanging in her apartment. I had my men visit her home today. Such interesting art. So much pain in every brushstroke. Dante's posture shifted, barely noticeable, but Arya saw it. Saw the predator wake up. What do you want, Victor? I want what's mine. The territories you stole, the operations you disrupted, the respect you took. Victor stepped closer. I want to watch your empire crumble, and I'm going to start by taking everything you care about. I don't care about anything. You didn't, past tense. Victor smiled. But now you care about her. The clumsy waitress who makes you feel human, and that makes you weak. Then you've already lost. Have I? What happened next happened fast. Victor's men raised their weapons. Dante didn't move. And Arya realized with cold horror that he'd come here to die, that he'd chosen this, chosen to end it rather than let Victor use her as leverage. She didn't think, didn't plan, just grabbed a piece of loose metal from the catwalk and hurled it at the Ferris wheel's control panel 20 feet away. It hit with a crash that echoed across the pier. Sparks flew. Alarms shrieked. Security guards came running. Lights flooded the concourse. Victor's men scattered like roaches. Victor himself disappeared into the fog, cursing in Russian. And Dante looked up, straight up at her hiding spot, his eyes finding hers across the distance. She saw his expression cycle through shock, fury, and something that might have been relief. Then he ran. Arya scrambled down the stairs, her hands slipping on rust, her breath coming in gasps. She burst through the maintenance door and nearly collided with Dante. He grabbed her shoulders. What the hell were you thinking? Saving your life. I told you to go to the safe house. And I told you this isn't over, security guards were shouting, radios crackling. They had maybe 30 seconds before someone found them. Dante grabbed her hand and pulled her through a service corridor, out a side exit, into the parking lot. A black car screeched to a stop in front of them, Marco at the wheel, looking furious and relieved in equal measure. They threw themselves into the back seat. Marco peeled out before the doors were fully closed. For a full minute, nobody spoke. Then Dante turned to her. "You ruined my plan. Your plan was suicide. My plan was ending this. By dying, by making Victor think he won, getting close enough to put a bullet in his head, and dying if that's what it took to keep you safe." His voice shook. "Do you understand? I was willing to die for you, and I was willing to save you, so I guess we're even. This isn't a game, Arya. I know it's not. I know what you are, what you do, what your world costs. But I also know that I'm not going to sit in some safe house while you throw yourself on a grenade for me. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. I protect you. That's the deal." "I never agreed to that deal." Marco cleared his throat. "Sir, we have a problem." Dante's rage shifted instantly to focus. "What problem?" "Victor's men hit the warehouse in Pilsen while you were at the pier. They took everything, money, weapons, product, and they left another message." "What message?" Marco handed back a phone. On the screen was a photo of Arya's apartment, door kicked in, paintings slashed, furniture destroyed, and written on the wall in red spray paint, "Tick-tock." Arya felt her stomach drop. "My paintings?" "Your paintings are nothing." Dante's voice was ice. "Your life is everything, and Victor just declared war." "What do we do?" "We end this. Tonight." He looked at Marco. "Call everyone. Every soldier, every associate, everyone who owes me a favor. I want Victor found. I want his operations burned to the ground. I want him and everyone he loves to understand what happens when you threaten what's mine." Marco nodded and started making calls. Arya touched Dante's arm. "You said you'd try not to be a monster." "I lied." He looked at her, and his eyes were empty again, the same emptiness she'd seen that first night at the restaurant. The monster was back. "Victor wants war, he gets war, and when I'm done, there won't be enough of him left to identify." "Dante." "No. You don't get to ask me to be human right now. You don't get to ask me to show mercy. He came into my city, threatened my people, destroyed your home, and tried to use you to break me." His jaw clenched. "So I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to become the monster they whisper about. And when it's over, if you still want me, I'll try to be human again." The car pulled up to the brownstone. Dante turned to her. "You're staying here. Marco and 2 others will guard the building. You don't leave for any reason. You don't answer the door for anyone except me. Understand?" "Where are you going?" "Hunting." "How long?" "However long it takes." She grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. "Don't lose yourself in this. Don't become so much of a monster that you forget how to come back." "I won't." "Promise me." He kissed her, hard, desperate, tasting like goodbye. "I promise." Then he was gone, and Arya was alone in his apartment with guards outside and a war starting in the streets. She spent the first hour pacing, the second hour staring at her phone, willing it to ring, the third hour painting, or trying to. She'd found art supplies in one of Dante's closets, probably bought for her, probably before Victor turned their fragile peace into chaos. She painted violence, anger, fear, slashed red across black canvas, trying to externalize the scream building in her chest. At 4 a.m., her phone finally rang. "Dante." "Are you okay?" she answered. "Define okay." His voice was rough, exhausted. "We found 2 of Victor's warehouses, burned them, found 3 of his lieutenants. They're not talking anymore." "Are you hurt?" "Nothing permanent." "Dante, Victor's gone to ground. He knows we're coming. It's going to take time to dig him out." "How much time?" "Days. Maybe a week." Arya closed her eyes. "I can't stay locked in here for a week." "You have to." "What about work? What about my life?" "Your life is staying alive. Work doesn't matter. Nothing matters except keeping you safe until this is over. I'm not a possession you can lock in a box." "I know you're not, but I'm also not watching you die because you're too stubborn to hide." His voice cracked. "Please, Arya. Please just do this. For me." She wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but she heard the desperation in his voice, the fear he was trying to bury under anger and violence. Okay, she whispered. But you come back to me. You don't get to die out there playing hero. I'm not a hero. I know. Come back anyway. I will. He hung up. Arya set down her phone and looked at the painting she'd created. Chaos and rage, and something that might have been hope buried under all the red. The next 5 days were the longest of her life. She existed in a strange limbo, cut off from the world, watching Chicago through windows she couldn't leave. Marco brought her food, newspapers, updates that were always the same. Still hunting, still fighting, still no sign of Victor. The news called it a gang war, reported fires in warehouses, shootings in alleys, bodies found in the Chicago River. The police held press conferences promising action. The mayor condemned the violence, and Dante kept hunting. He called every night, brief, exhausted conversations that always ended with promises to come home. She could hear him changing, feel him slipping further into the darkness. The man who'd stood in her apartment admiring her paintings was being consumed by the monster who ruled through fear. On the 6th day, Marco came upstairs looking grim. What happened? Arya asked. We found Victor. Her heart jumped. Where? Warehouse in Gary, Indiana, just across the state line. He's holed up with 20 men, weapons, enough supplies to last months. So get him. It's not that simple. The building's a fortress. One way in, one way out. Sniper positions. Cameras. If we try a frontal assault, people die. Maybe Dante. So what's the plan? Marco hesitated. That's why I'm here. Dante wants to offer Victor a trade. What trade? You. For peace. The room tilted. Excuse me? Victor agreed to a meeting. Neutral ground. If Dante brings you, Victor ends the war, pulls his men out of Chicago, leaves Dante's operations alone. And if Dante refuses? Victor burns everything, every business, every associate, every person Dante cares about, until there's nothing left. Arya sat down hard. Dante wouldn't actually give me to Victor. Marco's expression was unreadable. He told me to ask you. Ask me what? If you'd be willing to end this. He can't be serious. He's considering every option. This war is costing him everything. Money, men, allies. People he's worked with for years are walking away because they don't want to be caught in the crossfire. If it continues much longer, he'll have nothing left to protect. So he'd trade me to keep his empire? He'd trade anything to keep you safe. That's the problem. Marco leaned against the wall. Victor knows Dante's weakness now, knows he'll do anything to protect you. So he's going to keep pushing until Dante breaks. Unless I remove myself from the equation. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Arya stood, walked to the window. Outside, Chicago carried on. People living, working, loving, dying. Normal lives that would never intersect with this dark world she'd stumbled into. What would happen if I said yes? She asked quietly. Victor would take you, use you as leverage, probably keep you alive as long as Dante stays in line. Maybe. And if I say no, the war continues. More people die. Eventually, either Dante or Victor ends up dead. Maybe both. Some choice. Yeah, she thought about Dante, about the way he'd looked at her paintings, about the desperate hunger in his voice when he said he hadn't felt anything real in 12 years, about the promise she'd made to stay even when it got hard. Tell Dante no, she said. Tell him I'm not ending this by sacrificing myself. Tell him to find another way. There might not be another way. Then he'll make one. He's Dante Varelli. He doesn't accept defeat. Marco nodded. I'll tell him. After he left, Arya picked up her phone and did something stupid. She called Victor. She'd found his number in Dante's contacts, saved under a string of curse words. It rang 3 times before a cold voice answered. Who is this? You know who it is. Silence. Then, the waitress. How brave. Or foolish. I want to make a deal. I already offered Dante a deal. This is different. Meet me. Just me. No Dante, no armies. You and me. Why would I do that? Because you want to hurt Dante, and I'm offering you the chance. She kept her voice steady. But I'm not going to let you use me as a pawn. If we're going to end this, it's going to be on my terms. Victor laughed. You think you have terms? I think you're tired of this war. It's costing you too. And I think you're curious about the woman who made Dante Varelli care about something. A pause. Where and when? Tomorrow, noon, the Art Institute, main entrance. Public, smart.
I'm not an idiot. No, I don't think you are. She could hear the smile in his voice. Tomorrow at noon.
Come alone. If I see Dante's men, the deal is off and I start burning his world. He hung up. Arya sat on the couch, shaking. She'd just done the stupidest thing in her entire life, but she couldn't watch Dante destroy himself trying to protect her. Couldn't be the weakness that broke him. Her phone rang immediately. Dante. What did you just do? His voice was raw fury.
What I had to.
Marco said you refused the trade. And now I get a call from Victor saying you set up a meeting? I'm ending this my way. Your way gets you killed. Maybe. Or maybe it saves both of us. Arya, listen to me very carefully. You are not meeting Victor. You are not leaving that apartment. You are going to stay put while I finish this. How? By throwing more bodies at him until one of you dies? That's not a plan, Dante. That's suicide by proxy. I don't care. I don't care what it costs. I'm not losing you. And I'm not watching you become the monster you're trying not to be. She took a breath. You said you wanted to be human again. You said I made you feel real. Well, real humans don't sacrifice everyone around them to protect one person. Real humans make hard choices. Don't do this. I'm doing it. Tomorrow at noon. And Dante? Her voice softened. Trust me, please. She hung up before he could respond, turned off her phone, and spent the rest of the night preparing for what came next. Morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Arya hadn't slept, just sat at the window watching the city wake up, wondering if this was the last sunrise she'd see. At some point during the night, Marco had tried the door. She'd locked it from the inside. He'd knocked, pleaded, threatened. She'd ignored all of it. At 10 a.m., she took a shower, put on jeans and the leather jacket she'd worn that first day at Millennium Park, looked at herself in the mirror and tried to see what Dante saw, something worth destroying himself over. She just saw a scared girl pretending to be brave. At 10:30, she picked the lock on the window, a skill she'd learned from an ex-boyfriend who'd been more criminal than she'd realized at the time. Funny how life prepared you for moments you never saw coming. She climbed down the fire escape, dropped into the alley behind the brownstone. Marco's men were out front. They wouldn't know she was gone for at least another hour. The train to downtown was packed with late-morning commuters, normal people going to normal jobs, complaining about normal problems. Arya stood pressed against the door, watching Chicago blur past, and felt the distance between her world and theirs growing with every mile. The Art Institute stood solid and familiar on Michigan Avenue. She'd spent so many hours here during her 1 year of art school, staring at Hoppers and O'Keeffe's, trying to understand how they'd captured loneliness and made it beautiful. Back then, she'd thought understanding art would save her. Now she knew nothing could save you. You just had to save yourself. She climbed the steps at 11:45. The main entrance was crowded, tour groups, families, students sketching in notebooks. She found a bench with a view of both doors and waited. Victor arrived at exactly noon. He came alone, as promised, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her year's rent. Up close, she could see details the fog had hidden at Navy Pier, the scar along his jaw, the cold intelligence in his pale blue eyes, the way he moved like violence wrapped in civility. He sat beside her on the bench, didn't look at her, just stared at the doors like he was waiting for someone else. You came, he said. His accent made the word sound like a threat. I said I would. Dante's men are here, 3 of them, trying very hard to look like tourists. He smiled without warmth. He couldn't help himself. He doesn't know I'm here. I left without telling him. Liar, Dante Varelli knows everything that happens in his city. Not this time. Victor turned to look at her then. Really look. His eyes traveled over her face like he was cataloging weaknesses. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone weaker, someone he could use and discard. But you climbed out a window to meet the man who wants to kill you. That's either courage or stupidity. Maybe both. He laughed, short and sharp. I see why he likes you. You don't perform. Is that what everyone does around you? Perform? Everyone performs around men like us. It's survival. He leaned back, crossed his legs. So, the waitress who broke Dante Varelli, tell me what you want. I want you to end this war. Why would I do that? I'm winning.
Are you? Dante burned 3 of your warehouses, killed a dozen of your men, cost you millions in product and territory. She kept her voice steady. You're hurting him, but he's hurting you right back. And it's going to keep going until one of you is dead. Maybe both. And you care about Dante's survival. I care about ending the violence. Noble, naive, but noble. Victor studied her. What are you offering? Information, leverage, everything you need to destroy Dante's empire without firing another shot. His eyes narrowed. You'd betray him? To save him from himself? Yes. Explain. Arya took a breath. This was it. The moment where she either saved them both or got them killed. Dante has 3 offshore accounts. I know the bank names, the account numbers, the passwords. He told me everything. Thought he was protecting me by making sure I could access money if something happened to him. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket. It's all here. $30 million. Maybe more. Victor took the paper, unfolded it. His expression didn't change, but she saw his pupils dilate slightly. Hunger. Why would you give me this? Because if you take his money, you take his power. He can't fight a war without resources, can't protect his territory, can't pay his men. She met his eyes. You'll win. Without bloodshed, without risk. You take everything he has and he has to surrender. And you get what? His life. You let him walk away. No revenge, no retaliation. He leaves Chicago and you get his empire. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Around them, tourists took photos. A guide explained the architecture. Life continued, oblivious. You love him that much? Victor asked finally. Enough to break him if it keeps him alive. He'll never forgive you. I know. Victor stood, pocketed the paper. I'll consider your offer. That's not good enough. I need your word. My word? He smiled. You trust the word of a man who kills for profit? More than I trust this war to end any other way. He studied her for another long moment, then nodded once. If the information is correct, I'll let him live. But Arya, understand, if you're lying, if this is some trick, I'll kill you both, slowly, and I'll make sure he watches you die first. It's not a trick. We'll see. He started to walk away, then paused. You're wasted on him. A woman willing to sacrifice everything for a man who's only ever taken? You deserve better. Maybe, but we don't always get what we deserve. He left. Disappeared into the crowd like he'd never been there. Arya sat on the bench, shaking so hard she thought her bones might crack. She'd done it. Given Victor exactly what he needed to destroy Dante. Betrayed the man she loved to save his life. And the information she'd given him was completely real. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She'd turned it back on during the train ride. 17 missed calls from Dante. 32 texts, each more desperate than the last. She didn't read them. Couldn't. Instead, she called Marco. Where the hell are you? He answered. Are Dante's men still following me? Yes. They watched you meet Victor. They're losing their minds. Dante's on his way. Good. Tell them to take me to the brownstone. I'll explain everything there. She hung up before he could respond. The ride back was a blur. Dante's men didn't speak to her, didn't look at her, just drove in grim silence like they were transporting a bomb that might detonate. The brownstone's door was open when they arrived. Dante stood in the living room, and the expression on his face made her stomach drop. He'd aged 10 years in one night. His eyes were hollow, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. He wore the same clothes from yesterday, now wrinkled and stained with something that looked disturbingly like blood. Everyone out, he said quietly. The guards left. The door closed. They were alone. Tell me you didn't, Dante said. I had to. Tell me you didn't give Victor access to my accounts. Arya's throat closed. How did you? Because I'm not stupid, his voice cracked like a whip. Because the second you set up that meeting, I had people monitoring every account, every asset, every piece of my empire. And 20 minutes ago, Victor started moving money. $30 million, Arya. Everything I've built over 15 years. Gone. He said he'd end the war. He lied! Dante grabbed a lamp and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall. He took the money and then called me. Told me to watch, as he burns everything else. The warehouses, the businesses, the people who work for me. He's going to take it all and kill them anyway.
Because that's what men like Victor do. Arya felt her legs give out. She caught herself on the back of the couch. No, he promised. He promised nothing. You gave a monster everything he needed to destroy me, and you believed him when he said he'd play fair. Dante laughed, a horrible, broken sound. You thought you were saving me. You just killed me. Dante, Get out. The words hit her like bullets. What? Get out of my home. Get out of my life. I never want to see you again. You don't mean that, don't I? He turned to face her fully, and his eyes were empty again. The monster was back, and this time she'd put it there. You betrayed me, gave my enemy everything, cost me my empire, my power, maybe my life. And you did it thinking you knew better than me how to survive my world. I was trying to save you. I didn't ask to be saved. I asked you to trust me, to stay hidden while I handled this. His voice dropped to something venomous. But you couldn't do that. You had to play hero, had to prove you were smart enough, brave enough. And now everything I've worked for is gone because you thought you could outsmart Viktor Kozlov. Tears burned her eyes. I love you. You destroyed me. He pointed at the door. Get out. If you're not gone in 60 seconds, I'll have you dragged out. Dante, please, 50 seconds. She wanted to fight, wanted to scream that she'd done it for him, that she'd sacrificed everything to keep him alive. But the look on his face told her nothing she said would matter. She'd broken him. Arya walked to the door on legs that felt like water, turned back one last time. I'm sorry. So am I. She left. The door closed behind her with a sound like the end of the world. Outside, the city was bright and cold. Marco waited by a car, his expression carefully neutral. Take me home, she said. Your apartment was destroyed, remember? I don't care. Take me somewhere. Anywhere that's not here. He drove her to a hotel in River North, paid for a room with cash, left her with a phone number and instructions to call if she needed anything. Then she was alone. Arya sat on the hotel bed and finally let herself fall apart. Sobbed until her throat was raw, until her eyes swelled shut, until there was nothing left inside her but emptiness. She'd tried to save him and destroyed everything instead. 2 days passed in a fog. She didn't eat, barely slept, just existed in the hotel room, watching news reports about the gang war escalating. Victor was making his move, hitting Dante's remaining operations, taking territory, leaving bodies in his wake. And Dante was fighting back with everything he had left, which wasn't much. On the third day, Marco appeared at her door. You need to see this, he said. He handed her a tablet. On the screen was a news article. Chicago crime boss makes surprise announcement. She read it with shaking hands. Dante had called a press conference, stood in front of cameras and reporters and admitted everything. The violence, the drugs, the illegal operations, named names, provided evidence, implicated himself and everyone he'd worked with. Then he'd surrendered to the FBI. He's destroying his own empire, Marco said quietly. Everything Victor wanted, Dante's burning it down himself so Victor can't have it. Why would he do that? Because you were right. The war was never going to end with both of them alive. So Dante chose a third option. Marco took back the tablet. He's going to prison, Arya, 20 years minimum. But Victor gets nothing. No territory, no operations, no empire to take over. Just ashes. Can I see him? He won't see you. He's made that very clear. Marco, please. He told me to give you this. Marco pulled an envelope from his pocket. And then I'm supposed to make sure you leave Chicago, tonight. There's a ticket to Los Angeles, money for a fresh start, Dante's orders. Arya took the envelope with numb fingers. Inside was a letter, written in Dante's sharp handwriting. Arya, by the time you read this, I'll be in federal custody. They're going to put me somewhere I can't hurt anyone else, including you. You were right about the war. It was never going to end, so I ended it the only way I could, by destroying everything I built. Victor wanted my empire. Now there's nothing left to take. I know you thought you were saving me, and maybe you did. Just not the way you planned. You showed me that power without humanity is just a slow death, that being untouchable means being alone. I'm sorry I sent you away, sorry I said those things. You deserve better than my anger. But I need you to understand, my world destroys everything beautiful it touches. And you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So I'm letting you go, giving you the chance to be visible somewhere safe with someone who won't drag you into darkness. Live, Arya. Paint. Be seen. Don't let my mistakes make you invisible again.
I loved you. I'll probably always love you, but love isn't enough to keep you safe from what I am. Goodbye. D. She read it 3 times. Then she looked at Marco. Where is he? Metropolitan Correctional Center. They're transferring him to a federal facility tomorrow. I need to see him. He won't. I don't care what he said. I need to see him. One last time. Marco sighed. I can get you in. But Arya, he meant what he wrote. He's letting you go.
Then he can tell me that to my face. The Metropolitan Correctional Center was a concrete fortress in the loop. Marco had connections. Pulled strings, called in favors, got her 15 minutes in a private visitation room. Dante was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit that looked wrong on him. His hands were cuffed in front. His face was bruised. Someone had clearly gotten in a hit. But his eyes were clear, focused. He sat down across from her, didn't speak. You ended it, Arya said finally. I ended it. By destroying everything. By choosing what mattered. He leaned back in his chair. Victor wanted my empire. He can't have what doesn't exist. You're going to prison for 20 years. Better than dead. Is it? For you? Yes. Arya's chest tightened. You can't just decide what's better for me. I can when it keeps you alive. His expression softened slightly. You gave Victor my accounts thinking it would end the war. It almost did, just not the way you planned. You showed him I had a weakness. And once he knew that, he'd never stop trying to exploit it. So you eliminated the weakness. I eliminated the empire he wanted, and I made sure you'd be safe. He glanced at the guard by the door, then back to her. Marco has everything you need. Money, documents, a new start in LA. Fresh identity if you want it. You can paint, go back to school, live without looking over your shoulder. Without you. Without me. What if I don't want that?
Then you're going to have to want it anyway. His voice roughened. Arya, I meant what I said. I love you, but that's exactly why I need you to go. Because if you stay, if you wait for me, if you put your life on hold for 20 years, that's not love. That's just another cage. So you're making the choice for me. Yes. She wanted to scream, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she could wait, that 20 years was nothing if he was at the end of it. But looking at his face, seeing the determination mixed with devastation, she realized something. He was right. Waiting for him meant giving up the life he'd told her to live, meant staying invisible again, just in a different way, meant making him her entire world when he'd spent weeks trying to become human again by not doing exactly that. I hate you for this, she whispered. I know. I hate that you're noble and selfless when I want you to be selfish. I'm being selfish. He leaned forward as far as the cuffs allowed. I'm choosing to remember you like this, alive, angry, beautiful. Not broken, not destroyed by my world. If I kept you eventually, you'd become another casualty. And I can live with a lot of things, Arya. But not that. Tears slid down her cheeks. What am I supposed to do? Live. Paint pictures that make people feel something. Fall in love with someone safe. Grow old in a way I never will. He smiled, sad and genuine. Be visible. Like you were always meant to be. Will you think about me? Every day. Will you regret this? Probably. His eyes held hers. But I'll regret destroying you more. The guard knocked on the door. Time was up. Dante stood. Arya did too. They looked at each other across the small space, two people who'd found each other at exactly the wrong time. Thank you, Dante said quietly, for seeing me, for making me feel human, for breaking me open and showing me I was still alive underneath. Thank you for seeing me first. He nodded, turned to go. Stopped. Arya? Yes? In another life, I think we would have worked. In another life, you wouldn't have been you, and I wouldn't have loved you. He smiled one last time. Then the guard led him away, and she was alone. Arya left the prison and found Marco waiting. L.A.? He asked. She looked at the city around her, Chicago, sprawling and beautiful and full of ghosts now. She thought about Dante locked in a cell,
choosing her freedom over his own happiness. Thought about the letter in her pocket, the money for a fresh start, the life he was giving her by letting her go. Yeah, she said, L.A. That night she stood in the hotel room and packed the few things she had. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. She almost deleted it. Then she opened it. The accounts you gave Victor were dummies, fake numbers, fake passwords. By the time he figured it out, I'd already turned myself in. He got nothing. You saved nothing, but you tried. And that mattered. Arya stared at the message. Read it again and again. He'd known she was going to betray him and set up fake accounts for her to find. Known she'd try to save him and planned for it. She started laughing, a broken, hysterical sound that turned into sobs halfway through. He'd protected her even from herself. Another text came through. One more thing. I lied in the letter. Love is enough. It's the only thing that's ever been enough. I just loved you too much to keep you. Remember that. She typed back, I'll never forget you. The response came immediately. Good. Don't. Paint me angry. Paint me broken. Paint me real. Just paint. Then nothing else. He was gone. Arya sat on the bed and cried until there were no tears left. Then she pulled out a small canvas she'd bought from a corner store, found the cheap acrylics she'd grabbed, and she painted. She painted a man in shadows, a woman reaching for him. The space between them filled with light and darkness in equal measure. She painted love and loss, and the terrible beauty of choosing someone's freedom over your own happiness. She painted until dawn, until the canvas was full, until she could breathe again. Then she finished packing, took one last look at Chicago through the window, and left for the airport. Behind her, the city where she'd learned to be visible, where she'd been seen and loved and broken and saved, glittered in the morning sun. Ahead of her, L.A. waited. A blank canvas. A fresh start. And somewhere in a federal prison, Dante Varelli was learning to be human in a cage. But they'd both survive. Changed, scarred, forever marked by each other. And that, Arya thought as the plane lifted off, was its own kind of love story, just not the kind anyone expected. Los Angeles tasted like exhaust and possibility. Arya's studio apartment in Echo Park was smaller than Dante's bathroom had been, with walls so thin she could hear her neighbors' arguments and a window that looked out onto a parking lot. But it was hers. Paid for with Dante's money, sure, but hers nonetheless. The first week she didn't paint, just existed. Walked the streets until her feet blistered, sat in coffee shops watching people live normal lives, tried to remember who she'd been before a shattered glass changed everything. The second week, she bought supplies. Real supplies this time. Professional-grade canvas, oils that cost more than groceries, brushes that felt like extensions of her hands. She sat up in the corner of her apartment where the light was best and stared at the blank canvas for 3 days straight. On the fourth day, she painted Dante. Not the crime boss. Not the monster. The man who'd stood in her apartment looking at her work like it mattered. The man who'd kissed her like she was oxygen. The man who'd loved her enough to let her go. She painted him in shadows and light, fractured and whole, human and something more. When she finished, she hung it on her wall and cried for an hour. Then she started the next one. Art became her therapy. She painted Chicago, the restaurant, the brownstone, the pier where everything had almost ended. She painted violence and tenderness, fear and courage, all the things she couldn't say out loud. A month in, she got a job at a gallery in Silver Lake. Not as an artist, her work wasn't ready for that yet, but as a receptionist. It paid enough to cover rent and supplies, left her evenings free to paint. Her boss was a woman named Carmen, 50-something with silver streaks in her black hair and opinions about everything. She took one look at Arya's work during the interview and said, "You're running from something." "Excuse me?" "Your paintings. They're good, but they're screaming. Whatever you left behind, it's eating you alive." Arya had almost walked out, but Carmen had hired her anyway, and over the next few months they became something like friends. Carmen didn't pry, didn't ask about Chicago or why Arya sometimes went days without speaking, just let her exist and paint and slowly become human again. 3 months after leaving Chicago, Arya's phone rang at 2 a.m. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. She answered. "Arya Bennett?" A woman's voice, professional but kind.
Yes? My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a federal prosecutor in Chicago. I'm calling about Dante Virelli. Everything in Aria went cold. Is he okay? He's fine, physically, but I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with him. I already told the FBI everything I know. I know, but we're building a case and your testimony could be crucial. There are people who worked with Dante, people who enabled his organization. We need to make sure they face justice too. Aria sat on her bed, staring at the painting of Dante on her wall. What do you need from me? I need you to come back to Chicago, testify at trial, help us put the rest of his operation away. I can't. Miss Bennett, he let me go so I could have a life. If I come back, if I testify, I'm just another piece of his past dragging him down. I can't do that to him. This isn't about him. It's about justice for the people his organization hurt. Then find another way. Use the evidence he gave you. Use his confession, but leave me out of it. Silence on the line. Then, he said you'd say that. What? Dante. When we asked if you'd cooperate, he said you'd refuse. Said you were too stubborn to let him define your life, even from prison. Sarah paused. He also said to tell you that testimony isn't loyalty, it's truth, and you've never been afraid of the truth. Damn him. Even from a cell, he knew exactly what to say. If I testify, I want something in return, Aria said. We don't make deals. Not for me. For him. I want his sentence reduced. Good behavior, cooperation, whatever legal trick you can pull. He gave you everything. He deserves something back. I can't promise that. Then I can't promise testimony. Another pause. I'll see what I can do. Sarah hung up. Aria sat in the dark, her apartment suddenly feeling like a cage. She called Carmen the next morning, told her everything. Chicago, Dante, the choice she was facing. Carmen listened without interrupting, then said, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." "Bullshit. You know, you're just afraid of the answer." "I want to pretend the past year never happened. I want to paint and live and be normal." And I can't, because he's in my head, in my work, in everything I do. I left Chicago, but I never really left him. Carmen poured them both coffee. So what's stopping you from going back? He told me to move on. He also told you not to be afraid of the truth. Seems like he's giving you permission. Or testing me. Maybe both. Carmen sipped her coffee. Here's what I know about love, kid. Real love isn't pretty. It's not safe. It doesn't fit into neat boxes or follow rules. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes it asks you to do hard things. She met Aria's eyes. The question isn't whether you should go back. It's whether you can live with yourself if you don't. Aria flew back to Chicago 2 weeks later. The city looked the same, still sprawling, still beautiful, still full of ghosts. But she felt different walking through it, stronger, like she'd left as a girl running from danger and returned as a woman facing it. The trial was held in federal court, downtown. Aria sat in the witness box wearing a black dress Carmen had lent her, her hands shaking as she swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor, Sarah Chen, professional in a navy suit, asked her about her relationship with Dante, about the meetings, the conversations, what she'd witnessed. Aria answered honestly, didn't protect anyone, didn't soften the truth, just told it like it happened. The defense attorney tried to paint her as a scorned lover seeking revenge, suggested she'd manipulated Dante, used him, fabricated evidence. Is it true you gave confidential financial information to Victor Kozlov? He asked. Yes. To destroy Mr. Virelli? To save his life. By betraying him? By doing what he was too stubborn to do himself, ending a war that was going to kill him. But it was fake information. You didn't actually betray him at all, did you? Aria looked at the defense attorney, slick, expensive, the kind of man who made lying look like truth. I tried to. He just knew me well enough to protect me from myself. So you admit you intended to betray your lover to his enemy? I admit I loved him enough to break him if it meant keeping him alive. And I'd do it again. The courtroom was silent. The defense attorney sat down, apparently deciding he'd made his point. But as Aria left the stand, she caught Sarah Chen's small smile. The answer hadn't hurt Dante's case. It had helped, because it showed love and desperation and the complexity of surviving in a world built on violence. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Arya attended every day, sitting in the back row, watching as Dante's empire was systematically dismantled in testimony and evidence. She never looked at him, couldn't, because she knew if their eyes met, she'd fall apart. On the last day, the jury convicted 15 of Dante's associates, guilty on all counts. They'd spend the next decade in prison, minimum. Arya left the courthouse and found Marco waiting outside. "He wants to see you," Marco said. "He told me not to wait for him. He also told you to be honest. So be honest. Do you want to see him or not?" She did, desperately. The Metropolitan Correctional Center looked exactly the same. Same concrete walls, same security procedures, same visiting room where she'd said goodbye months ago. Dante was brought in looking thinner, harder, but somehow more at peace. He sat across from her, hands cuffed, and for a long moment they just stared at each other. "You came back," he said finally. "You knew I would." "I hoped. Didn't know. Your sentence got reduced, 8 years instead of 20. Sarah pulled strings. Because you testified. Because you cooperated." She leaned forward. "Why did you want to see me?" "To say thank you." "For what?" "For choosing truth over comfort. For testifying even though I told you to move on. For being exactly who you are, stubborn and brave and completely unwilling to stay invisible." He smiled. "And for painting me human instead of monster." Arya's breath caught. "How did you know about the paintings?" "Marco sent photos, everyone you've done since leaving." His expression softened. "They're beautiful, Arya. Angry and honest and real. Everything I hoped you'd create. I paint you every day. Can't seem to stop." "Don't. Let me be your muse from a distance. Let me be useful for something other than destruction." "Is that what this is? You being useful?" "This is me trying to figure out how to love you from inside a cage. How to be part of your life without ruining it." He leaned back. 8 years is a long time. It's also not forever. "Arya, I'm not saying I'll wait. I'm not putting my life on hold." She met his eyes. "But I'm also not pretending you don't exist. You're in my head, my work, my heart. So we're going to figure out what that looks like." "I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm choosing." He looked at her for a long time. Then, "You know what's going to happen, right? The media, the judgment. Everyone's going to have an opinion about the waitress who fell for a killer. Let them. I stopped caring what people think the day I dropped that glass. You're going to get hurt. I'm already hurt. Might as well be hurt honestly." Dante laughed, rough and genuine. "You're impossible. I learned from the best." They talked for the full hour. About her life in LA, her job at the gallery, the paintings she was working on, about his life in prison, the routine, the boredom, the slow process of learning to be human without power or control. "I'm taking classes," he said. "Literature, philosophy, art history, trying to understand the world you live in." "The world we live in," she corrected. "Maybe, in 8 years." "In 8 years." She stood as the guard signaled their time was up. "I'm going to visit. Not every week, not every month, but when I can. When I need to. Is that okay?" "More than okay. And I'm going to keep painting you. Is that okay?" "Please do. Make me immortal in canvas." She smiled, started to leave, stopped. "Dante? Yeah? I love you, still. Maybe always. Just needed you to know." His eyes went bright. "I love you too. Broken and human and completely unworthy of you. But I love you." "You're not unworthy. You're just learning. We both are." She left before she could cry. Marco drove her to the airport, silent and respectful of the tears sliding down her face. "He's different," Marco said finally. "Since you left. More at peace. Prison will do that." "Not prison. You. You showed him he could be something other than what he was." Marco glanced at her. "He told me once that you saved his life. Not from Victor. From himself." "He saved mine too. Just in a different way." She flew back to LA, back to her tiny apartment, her gallery job, her paintings. But something had shifted. The work was still honest, still raw, but now there was light in it too. Hope. the possibility of something beyond the darkness. 6 months later, her paintings were featured in a group show at Carmen's Gallery. Small exhibit, local press, nothing major. But people came. People looked. And for the first time since Chicago, Aria felt visible in a way that didn't terrify her. A critic from the LA Times wrote, "Bennett's work captures the brutal honesty of love in its most complicated form. Not romance, but recognition. These are paintings about being seen and being saved and the terrible beauty of both." The show sold 3 pieces. Not enough to quit her day job, but enough to matter. Aria sent photos to Dante. He wrote back on prison stationery, his handwriting careful and precise. "You're doing it, being visible, being real. I'm proud of you. Also, the painting of us at Millennium Park sold for $3,000. You're officially a professional artist. How does it feel?" She wrote back, "Terrifying, amazing, like I'm living the life you told me to live. Thank you for pushing me toward it. Thank you for pulling me toward humanity, even if it took a cage to get me there." They wrote letters after that, once a month, sometimes more. Never about the past, always about the future. About her art, his classes, the small victories of building lives from rubble. A year in, Dante called, one of his allowed phone calls, carefully scheduled. "I have news," he said without preamble. "Good or bad? Depends on your perspective. I'm being transferred to a minimum security facility in California. Low-risk prisoners, rehabilitation focus." Aria's heart jumped. "When?" 2 months. It means I can have more visitors, more contact with the outside world." He paused. "It also means I'm closer to you, if that's something you want." "It's something I want." "Even if it complicates your life?" "My life's been complicated since I met you. Might as well lean into it." He laughed. "I missed your voice. I missed yours too." The transfer happened in March. Dante's new facility was 3 hours north of LA, nestled in the desert where the sky went on forever. Aria visited on a Saturday, nervous and excited and terrified all at once. The visiting room was different here, more open, more human. Tables instead of glass partitions. Real conversation instead of phones. Dante looked good, healthy. His eyes were clearer than she'd ever seen them, like prison had stripped away layers of darkness and revealed something genuine underneath. They sat across from each other, and for a moment neither spoke, just looked. "You're here," he said finally. "I'm here. How's LA?" "Loud, bright, full of people who don't know my story." "Is that good or bad?" "Both. I miss Chicago sometimes, but I also like being anonymous again, just in a different way." They talked for 2 hours, about everything and nothing, about her upcoming show at a bigger gallery, about his progress toward a degree in literature, about the future that felt simultaneously impossible and inevitable. Near the end, Dante reached across the table, slowly, carefully, giving her time to pull away. His fingers brushed hers. "I'm going to get out in 7 years," he said. "Maybe less with good behavior. And when I do, I have no empire, no power, no life waiting for me." "Dante, let me finish." His grip tightened. "I'm going to get out, and I'm going to have to build something from nothing. Figure out who Dante Varelli is when he's not a crime boss. And I don't know if that person is someone you can love." "I already love that person. I've been painting him for 2 years." "You've been painting a memory. Reality might be different. Then we'll figure it out together, 7 years from now, or 6, or however long it takes." He smiled, real and warm, and almost shy. "You're going to wait for me?" "I'm not waiting. I'm living, painting, working, building a career. But yeah, in 7 years when you walk out, I'll be there." She squeezed his hand. "Because you were right. Love is enough. It's messy and complicated and doesn't fit into boxes, but it's enough." "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but I don't deserve you either. We're both disasters trying to be better." "Fair enough." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked across the table, 2 broken people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and somehow made it mean something. Time passed. Seasons changed. Aria's career grew. More shows, more sales, more recognition. She bought a real apartment, upgraded her supplies, hired an assistant to help with commissions. Her work was featured in magazines collected by people whose names she recognized. And through it all, Dante was there. Not physically, but in letters and phone calls and monthly visits. In the paintings she created that got darker and lighter by turns, capturing every facet of love and loss and hope. Critics started calling her work brutally optimistic, a phrase she hated and loved in equal measure. Year 3, Dante finished his degree. Year 4, he started teaching other inmates, helping them prepare for life after release. Year 5, he was granted early parole consideration for exemplary behavior and cooperation. Year 6, on a cold December morning, Aria got the call. "He's getting out," Marco said. 3 months. April 15th. She sat down hard on her studio floor surrounded by paintings in progress. "Are you sure? Parole board approved it yesterday. He called me last night, asked me to tell you." "Why didn't he tell me himself?" "Because he's giving you one last chance to walk away. No judgment, no guilt, just freedom." Aria looked around her studio, at the life she'd built, the career she'd created, the version of herself who was visible and valued and no longer afraid. And she realized something. She didn't need Dante to be visible, didn't need him to define her or save her or complete her, but she wanted him anyway. Not because she needed saving, but because they'd saved each other in 1,000 small ways, and she wanted to see what came next. "Tell him I'll be there when he walks out," she said. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." The next 3 months crawled by. Aria painted furiously, poured everything into a new series she was calling Redemption. Images of people emerging from darkness into light, broken but healing, changed but whole. On April 14th, she drove north to the prison, checked into a motel nearby, barely slept. April 15th dawned clear and bright. Aria stood outside the prison gates at 8 a.m., watching the sun rise over the desert, her heart hammering against her ribs. At 8:30, the gate opened. Dante walked out wearing jeans and a white t-shirt Marco had brought him. No more orange jumpsuit, no more cuffs. Just a man stepping into sunlight, blinking like he'd forgotten how bright the world could be. He saw her, stopped. They stared at each other across the parking lot, 6 years and a lifetime between them. Then Dante crossed the distance in long strides, and Aria met him halfway. He grabbed her face in his hands, pressed his forehead to hers. "You came." "I told you I would." "I know, but I still couldn't believe it until I saw you." "Believe it." He kissed her then, slow and sweet and full of 6 years of letters and longing and the impossible hope that they could actually make this work. When they broke apart, both laughing and crying at once, Dante said, "I have no idea what I'm doing. No job, no plan, no clue how to be a normal person. Good. I hate normal. I'm going to screw this up. Probably. I will too. We're a disaster. The best kind." Marco pulled up in a car, gave them privacy while they held each other and remembered how to exist in the same space. Finally, Aria pulled back enough to look at him. "What do you want to do? Like, right now, first thing as a free man?" Dante thought about it. "I want to see your paintings. All of them. The ones you've been describing in letters, but I've never seen in person. They're all of you." "I know. That's why I want to see them." They drove to LA together, Marco at the wheel, Aria and Dante in the back seat, holding hands like teenagers. Every few miles, Dante would look at her like he couldn't believe she was real. Her studio was in a converted warehouse in the Arts District. She'd rented it a year ago, needed the space for larger canvases. When she unlocked the door and led Dante inside, he stopped breathing. The walls were covered in 6 years of work. Paintings of Chicago, of violence and tenderness, of a man learning to be human and a woman learning to be visible. The evolution of their story told in color and canvas. Dante walked through slowly, stopping in front of each piece. He didn't speak for 15 minutes, just looked. Finally, he turned to her with tears on his face. "You made me beautiful," he said. "You are beautiful. Broken and flawed and learning, but beautiful. I destroyed so much. And you're building something new. That's what these show. Not the destruction, but the reconstruction." He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. "I love you. I've loved you since you dropped that glass and looked at me like I was just another annoying customer. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that." You already do, just by being here, just by trying.
They stood in her studio, surrounded by the evidence of their story, two disasters who'd found each other and somehow made it mean redemption. The next months weren't easy. Dante struggled with normal life, couldn't sleep without noise, flinched at sudden movements, felt useless without power or control. He got a job at a bookstore, lived in a small apartment Marco helped him find, attended therapy twice a week. Arya had her own struggles, trusting that he wouldn't slip back into old patterns, dealing with judgment from people who knew their history, fighting the urge to fix him instead of letting him fix himself. But they figured it out, slowly, imperfectly, with fights and reconciliations and long conversations about what love looked like when neither person was performing. A year after his release, Dante showed up at Arya's studio with news. "I got accepted to graduate school," he said. "Literature program at UCLA. Full scholarship." "Dante, that's amazing. It's terrifying. I'm 42 years old. I'll be in classes with kids half my age." "So what? You've survived prison. You can survive undergrads." He laughed, pulled her close. "Will you come with me to the first day? I know it's stupid, but it's not stupid. Of course I'll come." 2 years after that, Arya had her first solo show at a major gallery in New York. Dante flew out for the opening, stood in the crowd watching people react to her work. A collector bought the entire series for 6 figures. Arya found Dante afterward, grabbed his hand. "We did it. You did it. This is all you." "No, this is us. Every painting is us." She gestured at the walls, the anger, the hope, the mess. "We made this together." He kissed her forehead. "Then we're doing okay. Better than okay." And it was true. They weren't perfect, weren't healed, still carried scars and triggers and bad days. But they were real, visible, living lives that felt earned rather than inherited. 3 years after Dante's release, he proposed, not in some grand gesture, but in Arya's studio at 2 a.m. while she painted and he read student essays. "Marry me," he said, looking up from his papers. She nearly dropped her brush. "What?" "Marry me, not because I own you or complete you or any of that nonsense, but because I want to build a life with you. Officially, messily, however it looks." "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard." "I know. Want to say yes anyway?" She did. They married small, just Carmen, Marco, a handful of friends. No press, no performance. Just 2 people promising to keep choosing each other despite everything. The wedding was in the desert, near the prison where Dante had learned to be human again. Arya wore a simple dress. Dante wore a suit. They wrote their own vows. "I promise to see you," Arya said, "even on days when you can't see yourself, even when the darkness comes back. I'll keep looking until you remember you're worth looking at." "I promise to let you be visible," Dante said, "to never make you small or silent or invisible again. And I promise to keep trying to be worthy of the woman who saw past the monster to the man underneath." They kissed as the sun set over the desert, 2 disasters who'd become each other's redemption. Life continued. Dante finished his degree, started teaching at a community college. Arya's career flourished, shows in London, Tokyo, Paris. They bought a house in Silver Lake with a studio out back. Some days were hard. Dante still had nightmares. Arya still had moments of doubt. They fought about stupid things, dishes, schedules, whose turn it was to deal with the broken dishwasher. But they also laughed, created, built something that looked nothing like either of them had imagined, and everything they needed. 10 years after the night Arya dropped that glass, they sat on their back porch watching the sunset. Dante was grading papers. Arya was sketching ideas for her next series. "You know what I think?" Arya said. "What?" "I think we're proof that people can change, that monsters can learn to be human, that being seen is worth the risk of being hurt. That's optimistic." "It's true. Look at us. You went from crime boss to college professor. I went from invisible waitress to artist whose work hangs in museums. We're completely different people." "Are we, though?" Dante set down his papers. "Or are we just the same people who learned to be honest about who we were all along?" Arya considered that. "Maybe both." "Maybe." He pulled her close. "Either way, I'm glad you dropped that glass. Even though it led to all the pain and trauma and chaos,
especially because of that, because it also led to this, to you, to us, to a life that's real instead of performed. She kissed him. I love you, Dante Varelli, reformed crime boss, college professor, man who taught me what it means to be visible. I love you too, Aria Bennett Varelli. Artist, stubborn disaster, woman who taught me what it means to be human. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned pink and gold. Two people who'd found each other in darkness and somehow made it to light. Their story wasn't perfect, wasn't clean or simple or easy, but it was theirs, real and messy and earned. And in the end, that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.